No, sir.
Now, is it audible?
Yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, so very good afternoon to all of you. And my screen is visible to you?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so no issue. So I welcome to the all of you. Once again, I'm trying to deliver the one of the major component of under your research methodology. That is, what is the research problem? Most of the students has gone through this phase, right? So you know that how to tackle the research problem and how to make the new statement or how to try to generate the new knowledge. As we know that in my previous lecture, we have seen that what is the exact definition of research. So what do you mean by research? Can anybody tell me? What is the definition of research? Is there anybody? What is research? So can you explain me in one line or two lines?
Scientific investigation of a particular problem, or it is performed by using observation or by using some analysis technique and finding
Yes.
to a conclusion.
Yes, yes, yes. It is a very right one. But I will say the extend this statement. So the research means what? As already I have told you in the previous my lecture. So research means finding the facts and figures, finding the new knowledge, discovering the new knowledge, right? So you need to reinvent, research your existing knowledge to in a different manner, and you need to find out the answers of your question. Okay, what is your question? And on the basis of that question, you need to give the answers, the explanation you need to give. Okay, so the how this answer, how this question will be generated. Okay, so that's the research problem. What is a research problem? Okay, so on the basis of that, we need to decide what is your question. So that question is nothing but your research problem, and how you are going to be solve this research problem. Okay, so in today's lecture we will try to see what exactly is research problem, what are its important steps to find out the research problem, and what are the difficulties are facing by the researchers in India, and what are its problems. Okay, so we will go the slides. Yes, I hope my slides is visible to you, right? Is it visible?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
Okay. So these 2 points has given by the coordinator to deliver the lectures. The first point is problems encountered by the researchers in India, and the most important point is what is research problem. Okay. So we will cover all these points one by one. So first, you know that in India there are so many things which are not available like the Western countries. Okay, so whenever you are trying to do the research work, at the time most of the work like your empirical research. So at the time we are facing the so many problems. So I will just share one story. One of my friend who was working in the botany as a research scholar, and he want to find out some solution for the cancerous cells. Okay, and for that he wanted to do the research work, and he wants some chemical compounds. Okay, and that chemical compounds is not available in whole India. Okay, so what we have to do, he have to purchase that chemical from the other country. So he has to wait uh, for the I think maybe 6 months or more than 6 months to take the permission and try to buy or purchase that chemical from the another country, and then perform the research and then take the decision. So whether that particular chemical compound is suitable for the cancerous patients or not. Okay, so that kind of, if any empirical research has been there, so most of the researcher are facing these so many problems. So there are certain 10 different points which is highlighted under the book, Kothari's book. Okay, so I will just try to give the glimpses of that particular point. So very first point is lack of scientific training. Okay, so what it means that the lack of scientific training. So most of the students, those students are not aware about the what research. So ये research क्या होता है, इसको कैसा खाना है, तो वो अगर पता नहीं है तो we are not able to perform the proper research, right? So there are lack of scientific training. Most of the case students are just pass out their post graduation and they are directly jump to the research. Okay, so they don't have the idea how to do the research work. They don't have the enough maturity to tackle the problem. Because of that, they are not able to find out the correct research problem, and they are not able to produce the scientific approach or systematic analysis of their problem. Okay, so that's why this one of the major component, the obstacle will becomes into the picture whenever you are performing your research work. Or while doing your research work, you need a scientific approach. Okay, so for that we required the scientific training. So it was this I think the very first version of this Kothari's book was published in, maybe I will just, so first edition was published in 1985. So you can imagine at that point, at that time, what was the scenario was there, and what was the problems was facing at that time. Okay, so this problem has is mentioned by the Kothari according to that kind of situation. So nowadays, so many changes has been occurred, but as a part of curriculum, I will just elaborate that these things. Okay, so the students or the peoples are facing these so many problems because of they are not well acquire the scientific knowledge how to perform the research work. Okay, so that's why UGC has decided to give the forcefully this type of training. So you are performing the PhD, pre-PhD research coursework. Okay, so that is the one of the implementation, or we can say the implication of the UGC, which was this problem. This problem was facing by the so many researchers. Because of that, the UGC has forcefully created the one rule, and that because of that rule, you are getting or you are getting the scientific trainings. Okay, so what is the research, what are the ways to do your research work. Okay, so many different type of the guest speaker will be called for you to do the very good and excellent research in your domain. Okay, so this was the first problem, the lack of scientific training. And another one is before undertaking the research project, we need to understand whether that particular project or the topic has been equipped. Okay, so we need to identify whether the methodologies, what are the methods you are going to be select, whether that method is and the related, we can say equipments which are available in your research laboratory or not. So we need to find out, we need to check out whether the availability of the resources are there. The second point is there is insufficient interaction between the university departments. So you know that the most of the case, the emotion or there is a quarrel in between the department to department and the you can say the university to university. Because of that, there are no proper interaction between even though those people are not up to date. Okay, so because of that, whatever the government policies are there, that government policy is not directly implemented in your research institute. So because of that, what happened? There is no proper communication in between the research institute and the government, the research institute and the business or we can say the industrial communication. So there is the two-way communication is not there. So because of that, we are not able to find out tackle the particular problem. Okay. So if we take the example of the university, so university industry, we can say the industry interaction is not happened, right? So if we take the example of academicians, so if you know that the department wise there is a classes in between the peoples. Okay, so the classes in between the researcher and researcher. So because of that, they are not able to communicate with each other. They are not able to provide some facility to other students or other research departments. So because of that, they are not going to provide the good quality research. Okay, so that is one of the major problems faced in India. So there is insufficient interaction between the university and the other peoples. And another important third point is when you want to do the real-time research work and what are the real challenges which are facing in society. So most of the case, the business units like your industry, that industry, they are facing the problems due to they are getting some feedbacks from their customers, from the workers. Okay, so that kind of problem is there, and even that industrial person, they don't know how to overcome this problem. Okay, and that problem is never shared by the researcher. So because of they are thinking about that, they will misuse their data. Okay, so because of this thinking, so they don't have the confidence while supplying that particular data to the researcher. Okay, so they are reluctant to give the specific information to the researcher. Okay, so that is one of the major drawback, or you can say the major problem in India. So that's why the industry and research institute are not coming together to solve the real life challenges or solve the real life problems or to tackle the new upcoming you can say the research work. Okay, so that kind of problem will be arises. That is one of the problems encountered in India. The fourth point is the research studies are always overlapping to each other. Okay, so you know that I'm working in the same domain. My one of the colleagues is also working on the same domain in another university, another department, another state. The most of the researchers are working on the same domain with same technique. So because of what happened, the duplication will be created. Okay, so the replication of that research work. So it means that it will be filters your resources. So it is just waste of your money, waste of your time, and waste of your knowledge, waste of your efforts. Why? Because the already research work has been already done, and we are just wasting our time to do the same research again and again. So we need to overlap, or we need to reduce. Just someone is waiting. Okay, so that kind of problem has been arises when the research work is already done by these other people. So we need to go one step ahead. Okay, so we need to find out what are their problems. So we need to tackle that particular problem and then go for the new the idea, new invention. Okay, so instead of doing all these things, most of the case means we can say the near about 90% research work are overlapping to each other. Okay, so that's the one of the biggest problem in India. So that's why what happened there because of this overlapping, we are not able to produce good quality research work, and we are not going towards the patents. So the patent filing is very less in India because of this problem. We are not thinking beyond the black box. Okay, so we need to find out the beyond the your visionary limitation. Okay, so then and then we are able to do the quality research work. So such kind of problem may be solved by the compilation, the revision, and regular intervals of the analysis of the existing research. Okay, so whatever your domain is there, so on the basis of your domain, you need to find out the what new research article has been published, and what are their facts. Okay, and what are their new insights. Okay, so on the basis of that, you need to decide your future upcoming research problem. Okay, so uh, you need to make the concentration of every time. So what are the new upcoming challenges are going on in my domain, and how that challenges can be tackled. So that is in your new insights. Okay, the first fifth point is there is doesn't exist a code of conduct. Okay, so most of the case the in the previous before the some years ago only copy paste research was working out. Okay, so because of that it is a very bad practice. It is not a moral, and it is not comes under the ethics of the research. So some of the researcher just copy paste the existing research work and just changing their name instead of the existing author, just me just rephrasing that the existing data or existing research work, and they are publishing with their name. Okay, so that was the plagiarism problem was there because of the code of conduct is not present or not following in the university in the departmental level also. Okay, so therefore we need to declare the code of conduct. We need to follow the all the research ethics, right? So now I think before the 3, 4, 5 years ago, the UGC has compulsory make the plagiarism checking before the submitting your final thesis, right? So we need to minimize the plagiarism. So instead of just copy pasting the contents, we need to write your own contribution or what is your opinion. So on the basis of that opinion, we need to uh, create the new knowledge. Okay, so therefore we require the code of conducts. So there is a no code of conducts are following in the most of the universities. That is the biggest challenge. This problem in India. The sixth point is the many of the researchers in our country facing the difficulty to adapt and then the secretary or assistants. So you are the science student. So most of the case, science students are more aware about the technological things. But those students belongs to the social sciences. They are not adequate knowledge to use these some technical things in their research work. Okay, so at the time they are depend on the some another person. Okay, and because of that they are not able to get the assistance from that particular person in the specific time. Okay, so because of that it will be unnecessarily create the delay the in the completion of their research work, right? So this secretarial assistance is required whenever the researcher has facing a difficulty any problems or there is a need of their research work. So that's why university, we can say the UGC, University Grant Commission. So you need to play a dynamic role to solve such kind of difficulty. So if I am the student of social science and I want to take the survey from, or I want to identify the certain data from the Twitter or the Facebook or the sentimental analysis I want to perform. So at that time, the social science student is not able to collect such kind of information. At that time, they are depend on the computer science students or the computer people, and computer people is not able to provide the assistant within the particular stipulated time. So at that time, there unnecessary delay in time. Okay. So the university grant commission should play a dynamic role to solve this such kind of problem. Another thing is the most of the our laboratories, can say the libraries. Okay, so nowadays government has taken the initiative with the help of IIT Kharagpur, and they have developed the e-library, and there are so many research books, so many uh, books or the research works already uploaded on their website, so you can just take the download from that website. Okay, so I think billions of books are present. Okay, so I'm not giving the proper figure. I don't remember the proper figure, but so many books or reference materials are available at e-library, which is developed by the IIT Kharagpur. And nowadays, most of the universities are not making the or not purchasing the scientific journals. Okay, so because of that, the most of the students are facing the problem to find out the latest research problem. Okay, so they are getting the very older research paper, maybe the 5 years back research articles they are getting. So because of that, what happened? Because of that, what happens? They are not able to find out the real time or real research problem, or what are the existing problems are solved by the earlier researcher. So that kind of things they are not able to get in proper specific time. Okay, so because of these library management issues, they are facing so many problems. Okay, so they are facing so many energy, time, the money to trace out their research related articles, research related materials, or to refer the books, journals, and reports, and so many things from the other different resources. Okay. And another thing is the what are the new acts, new rules, new reports, like your research article also has been published. They are not our libraries are not able to get that new copies. We have just old copies. So I will just give one my example. So before joining this MGM University, I was given the one. So just wait, just. Okay, sorry for the disturbance. What happened? I want to give the one of my example. So I have just this. Before joining this MGM University, I have given the interview. One of the very famous, reputed, and very oldest engineering college, which is located at Mumbai. And I have completed my MSc in and PhD in computer science, and I know that I am eligible to teach in engineering field or engineering colleges, but they are not allowing me to attend the interview. So I just told them that there is, as per the AICT rules, I am eligible to for the research. Sorry, I am eligible to do teaching in the engineering colleges, but they are not allowing me. So I quarreled them with the main head of that particular institute, and they told me that there is no such rule available in the existing AICT rules. Okay, so I just shown him the one latest copy of the AICT rules, and then they told me that this is not a true one. So I tell them that so you just go to the Google and you search it and find out this AICT rule, which was published in July 2010. Okay, so according to that, they're going to know that yes, this is the newest rule, and we don't know that. And even though the problem is that means what it means. So whatever the new rules are there, that new rules should be adapted by the institute, and even those responsible faculties are there, or those working on the administrative level, they should know what are the new acts, new rules has been released by their concerned apex bodies. Okay, so we need to adapt that one. So that kind of lacking in our research institute, in our academic institute, right? So that's why these so many students or the so many people are facing so many difficulties and problems because of this lacking. The new acts, new rules, new reports have been generated by the governments. So we need to use the latest new, adapt the new acts, rules, and reports. So another thing is that the more libraries which are away from the, we can say like your the capitals, capital cities like your Delhi, Mumbai, and that's why we are not able to get the latest acts, rules within the time. So we need to speed up that point or problem. Then the ninth point is, so there is a difficulty of timely availability of the published data. Okay, so that already I have quoted out that. So if we want to get the IEEE research article, or we can say the elsewhere, or scopus, journals, publication be required. Sometimes they have the institute level subscription. So they require the institute level subscription. If you want to purchase individually, it is cost a lot. Okay, so the individual researcher, if paying for the purchasing their research articles, so it will be very costly. Okay, so that's why they are providing the institute level subscription within the minimal charges. Okay, so that's why we will able to get the latest published data. Okay, so it is a request to the all universities that they need to make the subscription of the very reputed journals, publishers, research articles and reports. Then the last point, which is problem encountered in research in India, the conceptualization. So what is meant by the conceptualization? Do you have any idea? So there is a misconception between the researcher and the research guide and some other people. So because of that, if there is a problem and the problem has not understood very well, and we have the certain predefined, pre-intent concept in our mind related to that problems, right? So at that time, we are not able to give the proper information. We are not able to collect the proper data related to our research problem. Okay, so that is one of the biggest problem in India. Okay, so if you remember this figure, which is in your research book, the research methodology written by the Kothari. Okay, so this is the research process. Yes.
Please repeat the conceptualization concept.
This is misconceptualization. Okay. Uh, for example, I want to do the research work in we can say, for example, for any specific on any religion. Okay. And I am not aware about that religion. I have some misconceptions related to that particular religion. Okay. So at that time, what happened? I have some misconception, right? So the problem of your misconception. Okay. And because of that, you are whatever the data you are processing, so that will be going to be wrong. Okay. And that's why your prediction will be also going to be wrong. Okay. That is the major problem. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
So now just try to remember this figure, research process. So you know that under your research process, you need to follow the certain steps. And very first step is the definition of a research problem. Okay. So we need to define your research problem. So that is the very first step. You cannot bypass this step. Okay. So you need to define your research problem. Okay. So the question is arises that how to define your research problem. What is your research problem? Okay. So you know that the problem, whenever the problem comes into the existing, it means that there is a certain issues. We need to find out we are suffering certain problems, or we can say that we need to tackle the certain issues. Okay. So we need to examine the existing issues and we need to give the particular solution for that particular issue. Okay. So we need to tackle such kind of problems. So the research problem is always very difficult to select. So it required very good research work, research experience to select the new research domain problems. Okay. So it is, I will just show you this some analysis. So, okay, so just we will try to read down the first this definition of the research problem. Okay. So what is your research problem and how to define that research problem? The research problem should be able to provide or find out the gaps between your knowledge. Okay, so there is a bridge. It is a one type of bridge knowledge which will be trying to solve your problem. Okay. So we need to find out what is the gap exactly. Okay. So when you are able to find out what is the exact gap in between the existing problem, so that is nothing but your research. Okay. And you need to give the solution to overcome such kind of gap or to fill up this gap by giving a certain solution. Okay. So if you see the technical definition of the research problem, so it is defined as an area of concern that requires a meaningful understanding of specific topic, condition, contradiction, and difficulties, right? So we need to find out the answers to your questions. So I show you the another point here. Is it? I'm trying to share the Microsoft Word file. Is it visible? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So this content has been copied from this website. Okay. So whenever we want to say that there is a research problem and how that research problem will be going to solve. Okay. So for that we required what exactly the definition of the research problem there. What are the characteristics? So whenever we are trying to decide your research problem, what are its components? Then how to formulate your research problem? That is the major things. So you need to set your objectives, right? So to set your objectives, you need to make the proper statement to create the research problem and to give the solutions to your research problem. Okay, so this definition we have already seen. So the research problem will be able to fill the gap in between your knowledge. Okay, so what is the purpose of this research problem statement? So very first point is it will try to give the introduction or the importance topic in your research proposal. Okay, so whenever you want to set the research problem, or you can say the problem of statement, right? This problem of statement should we give the one of the your research proposal for your PhD degree. Okay, so you need to frame out a framework or to analyze the existing reports and what are its outcomes. Okay, so that kind of we require the research purpose. That is the purpose of your research work. And what are the characteristics of this research problem? So whenever we are trying to find out the research problem, so at that time we need to follow these are the certain things or these are the certain characteristics that should be covered under your research work. Okay, so very first is that it will try to cover the essential needs or the issues, right? So it will try to find out what are the issues, what is the current existing needs. So if we take the example of today's research need, so you know that from last 2 years, the whole world has facing the pandemic situation of COVID-19, right? So there is need to do the research work on this domain. Okay, so why we require need? Because the most of the people they have lost their lives because of this pandemic COVID-19 virus, right? So our most of the scientists has performed the research work and they have discovered the uh, we can say the doses or the lessons for the overcome such kind of problem. But we are not able to provide the perfect solution to sort out the COVID-19. Okay, so for that there is a need or there is a demand or there is an issue. So whenever we want to decide the research problem, so at that time we need to check what is the issue, what is the need. So whenever you are trying to define your research problem, so that research problem should be logically clear, right? So you should be able to provide the logically. So what is your problem and how your problem will be going to solve in future? Okay. So what are their weaknesses and how that weaknesses you will be going to overcome? So that should be clearly and logically, technically should be proven one. Okay. So there is a required certain base behind that one. So we require the logically clear. And then another thing is the actual facts and evidences. So we need to find out the whatever your belief, whatever your logics are there, you are trying to mention it. So whether that beliefs, whether it is actually possible or not. So whenever you are trying to decide your hypothesis, so whether this hypothetically it should be correct or not, whether it is hypothetically good or not, whether that your facts will be going to satisfy or not. Okay, so that kind of things you need to decide or select. Another thing is that whenever you are trying to decide your research problem, so it will generate and encourage the research questions. Okay, so you know that most of the researcher has given the drawbacks of their research problem or their work. Okay, or they are trying to mention the future work of their existing problem. Okay, so we need to try to create some another question when your work has been finished from that your work. So there is a new question should be arises. New question should be upcoming, so that we will able to make the robust framework for your research. Okay. So whenever you are trying to formulate these such kind of challenging tasks while addressing it, so you need to encourage the upcoming researchers to do the research work in this domain. So these are the problems I have faced. This kind of problem may be solved in future in this manner. Okay, so such that kind of implication you need to suggest to the upcoming researcher. Okay, so it fits the budget and time frame. So this is very important characteristics while you are framing your research work. Okay, so if you have the sufficient budget and sufficient time, then and then you are able to perform the very good research work. If we are trying to select the time frame is very large, then you are not able to get your research degree within this stipulated time. So if you have selected the research domain, it required the very too much budget or too much amount to complete your research work. At that time also you are not able to perform your research work due to the lack of your money, right? Sometimes you are due to the lack of your manpower also you are not able to perform or do your task within the stipulated time. So you need to, while selecting your research work, you need to make the budget and time frame. Okay. So for that we require the specific time slots. We need to decide on first quarter what will be you are going to do. Okay. So and at the time you need to make the timeline. So on the basis of your timeline and on the basis of your budgetary provision, you need to decide your research plan. Another thing is that the sufficient data can be obtained. Okay. So if you don't have the sufficient data in your hand and you want to do the research work, then it is not possible. So because you don't have the data related to your research domain and you are depending on the another factor. Okay. So those society or those institute will be going to provide you the research data. And if they are not able to produce or give your research data, at that time you are going to be failed there. Okay. So if we take the example of the remote sensing based research work, at that time they are mostly depend on the satellite data, right? And we are not able to get the satellite data directly. So we will get the very we can say we need to make the documentation, we need to make the proper communication between the NRIC and the government agencies. Those are able to give you the remote sensing data. Okay, so that's why we need to first find out what are the free resources are there. If you have the sufficient free resources data, then you need to select that particular problem. Otherwise, this simply don't can say मराठीत म्हणे हवेत गोळीबार करायचे नाही. आपल्याला माहित असेल हे भेटणार आहे तर असं आपण काय करायचं त्याला डिसाइड करायचं. अदरवाइज काय होईल की इन फ्युचर मध्ये वी आर नॉट एबल टू सॉल्व युअर रिसर्च प्रॉब्लेम. ओके. And another important characteristic, last characteristic is unsatisfactory answer or is a new problem. Okay. So whenever you are trying to solve your problem and that problem is not yet solved. Okay. So at that time it is unsatisfactory. Okay. So your research problem is not able to give the satisfactory answers to the society. Okay. So now the question is arises that how to frame out or how to prepare the research problem statement. Okay. So you know that you have decided the objectives of your research work. You have decided the hypothesis of your research work. Okay, so it required the knowledge of the existing research work. And if you have the sufficient or adequate knowledge of your research domain, then and then you are able to give the or write the research technique. Okay, or we can say the research problem statement. Okay, so it is a functional research problem. It will be helps to close the gap in knowledge in the field that can lead to more research. Okay, so we need to make the accurate statement whenever we are trying to create your research work. Okay, so whenever we are framing this the problem statement, at the time they have these certain characteristics. Okay, so I will just simply read out that what are the characteristics, so you will easily able to understand that one. So it must have addressed the gap in knowledge, right? So as already I have told you that, so it should be fill up the gap between the existing knowledge. So it must be significant to the extent the contributes the positively to the research. Okay, so significant research work should be there, or we need to extend the already existing research. Okay, so if we can say, so already if already existing researcher has performed the or they have get the 90% recognition rate, so your responsibility that you need to extend this 90% to the 91%. So if you get or if you achieve the 0.1% is the accuracy rate as compared to the earlier research work, so that is your contribution, that is your significant work. Then it must help in the future further research, right? So with the data collected, you must understand the problem clearly. So whenever you are trying to collect your data, so before collecting your data, you should understand your problem clearly. Okay, so it should be logically, theoretically perfect one. It must be the researcher interested and suit his or her time, knowledge, skill, and resources. The problem solving approach must be ethical. Okay, so while pursuing or doing your research work, you must follow the research ethics. Okay, there is a requirement of code of conduct, and we should, it is our duty to follow the ethics. And customer research methods can also be applied here. So there are the certain components which while framing your research problem, we need to consider. So if the consumer are facing the problems, so that problem can be considered as a research problem, and then you are going to give the solution. The consumer objectives, sometimes most of the consumers will try to give the good suggestion to for the particular product. In this product, this point or this should be enhanced. Okay, so should be added. Okay, new things should be added here. So on the basis of that, you need to decide your research problem. Okay, so whenever you are trying to define your research problem, so you need to consider the consumer support. Okay, consumer objectives, or also you need to decide what are the alternative ways to solve your research. Okay, so if you are you know that whenever we are trying to do we have a certain goals. So if we are setting the goals, at the time we have to set the plan A, plan B, plan C. So whenever we are trying to set such kind of plan, so if plan A is fails, what is the alternative plan? What is alternative plan B, plan C? Okay, so in this manner we need to set your research plan. Okay, and then another point is doubt in the selection of alternatives. Okay, so if you have the doubt, whenever you are trying to decide your objectives, so at the time, so don't make the vague statements. Okay, so if vague statements are there, so your whole research will be going to be problematic. Okay, so whatever your finds, whatever your facts, and while performing the rigorous literature review, whatever facts you have find out, on the basis of, you need to set your research problem. Okay, okay, so when what are the doubtfuls are there, you need to avoid the doubtfuls. Okay, there must be more than one environment. Okay, so for example, you have developed your own method, so that method should be able to do or perform well in a particular environment. So you need to check the another alternative ways in another environment, whether it is applicable or not. Okay, so that kind of the existing problem you need to solve with the help of the another environment. Okay, so if I have taken one example of any case study, for example, face recognition. So I can say that in face recognition, this algorithm is working perfectly, right? So should I use this algorithm to another biometric traits for fingerprint or for IDs or for form recognition? So at the time, we need to check the environment level or this another level. Okay, so whether it is applicable or not. Okay, so whenever you are trying to formulate your research problem, so we need to follow these 5 steps. Okay, so very first step is identify the broad research area. Okay, so you have already, you know that you are belong to the specific subject. Okay, so under that subject you want to do the research work. Okay, so your subject is nothing but your broad research area. Under that subject you are going to be in detail. Okay, so in depth you need to go. So for that you need to divide your broad area into the sub areas, right? And once you have divided your sub area, then you go to the particular point. Okay, so if you take an example of the dividing the subcategories, here there is example: profile of soccer players, profile of soccer clubs, level of soccer clubs, impact of the club on the city, revenue generation areas, sponsor of the soccer clubs. Okay, so likewise you need to make in detail, in-depth subdivision of your topic, and on the basis of that you need to go to reach out your research problem. Okay, another thing is the choose the sub area. Once you have chosen the sub area, the particular domain, under that particular domain, you need to find out whether these domain will be going to give the significant research work, or it will be trying to create the new knowledge into the existing research work. Okay, so you need to do the very rigorous literature survey for that one. Then once you have find out the problem, you need to make the formulation of your research problem. Okay, so before giving the formulation, you need to ask the question. Okay, so already in the previous lecture I have told about that you need to ask the question why. Okay, so every time you need to check why, what is reason behind it, whether it is going to give the correct solution or not. Okay, so WH question you need to ask every time before formulating your research problem. Okay, once your research problem has been formulated, on the basis of your research problem, you need to set the research objective. Okay, so your research objective must draw the plan about your objectives. Okay, so whatever the research problem you are going to explore in detail, so on the basis of that you need to set the objectives. Okay, what are the steps, what will be the going to achieve after this research has been done. Okay, then after that we need to create the problem statement. Okay, so I will just take the example here. If we are taking the or trying to create the research problem, or the title, or deciding the title of your research work, So at that time, there is here one example. What are the effects of social media on people? Okay, so one of the researcher has been decided this research work or research problem. Okay, so this research work is very vast one. Okay, it is very big one, and it is not identified that which social media we are going to discuss. What are the peoples we are going to take in the your research work? Okay, so that's why we need to be a specific, be narrow, be a concentrated research work we need to do. Okay, so the correct one is what effects does using Facebook every day on the teenagers. Okay, so that kind of the correct alternative research problem you need to decide. So instead of the taking the too much vague, too much high, very complicated problem, from that complicated point problem, you need to select the specific point or specific problem, and then go for the research. Okay. Then another example: who has better healthcare system? Who has a better healthcare system, the US or the UK? Okay, so you know that these are the Western countries. They are well equipped with medical healthcare systems. Okay, and while deciding such kind of problem for research work, we are not able to understand or how we are going to set the objective for this kind of healthcare system. Okay, so instead of that, you need to make the comparison. So whether you are going to compare the US and UK healthcare system. Okay, so on the basis of what kind of parameter you are going to discuss in your research work. Okay, so the correct alternative for your research work like this. So how do low income earning people feel about healthcare system, and how does the UK and US compare? Okay, so that comparison should be there. Another third example is what will help political parties address the issue of low voter turnout. Okay, so this is the incorrect problem. So the this problem can be resolved or correct way to make the research problem statement like this. What communication strategies can political parties apply to increase the voter turnout among people between the age of 25 to 30? Okay, so in this manner we are just setting the age between 25 to 30. Okay, so we have the very limited people, and we need to perform the limited people survey. We need to decide the particular areas where you are going to communicate with the political parties. Okay, so likewise the specific strategy you need to decide while setting your research problem. Okay, so what are the advantages of formulating your research problem? So understanding the research procedure. Okay, how to write your research problem, how to take the help from your colleagues, your research supervisor, or other research institutes. Okay, what going to be, how to write the good research proposal, the financial budget to your research work. Okay, so like this, so we require the proper understanding of your research procedure, research writing skill. Okay, determining the research objective. So whenever we are trying to decide your research problem, you need to set the objective. So your goal should be in a proper manner, should be clear, right, without any ambiguity. Then design the research process. Okay, so you need to select the appropriate research method or research methodology in which you will going to give the or solve your research problem. Okay, what kind of design, what kind of analysis you are going to use in future in your research work. So that kind of process you need to mention while defining your research problem. And last one is lay the foundation of your research. So the formulating good research problem is compared to the line the foundation of your building. Okay, so if the research problem is well identified, you will face fewer hiccups during the research process. Okay, so these are the points will becomes under the defining of your research problem. Okay, so main thing is that whenever you are trying to decide your research problem, so that research problem should be fill the gap in between your knowledge, right? In between the existing problem and even your knowledge. Right? So, so whenever you are thinking, how do you know we have the research problem? Okay, so first you need to find out what are the customer complaints are there. If we take the examples of any specific product like your mobile phone or any consumer product, so at the time we should be select the customer complaints, conversion with company employees, convergence, the communication between your company employees, what will be going to be in future. Okay, how the we are going to be after 10 years, after 20 years. Okay, what will be the going requirement will be change of your customers. Okay, so like this, you need to discuss with your employer and tackle the research problem, and then on the basis of that, you need to set your research goal. Okay, then observation of inappropriate behavior or condition, right? Deviation from the business plan. Most of the companies they don't know uh, how to make the deviation. Okay, so if their the margins of the income is decreasing, the deviation will be happen. Differences are coming. So many things. So we need to make the business plan in effective manner. Okay, so how your business plan will be make the deviation in your income. Okay, so for that you need to make or set a goal. So that is nothing but the research problem of their company, their business. Success of the firm's competitors. Okay, so we need to measure whether we are success or not. So by tackling the position of your competitors. Okay, so on the basis of that, you need to decide. If you take the example of the Nokia mobile phone, and nowadays we are using the Android mobile phones. So, okay, so at that, when was the time of that? The everybody has the mobile phone as a Nokia. Okay, but nowadays Nokia is outdated, and the handheld mobile like touchscreen mobile or Android-based mobile has been very famous, very popular. So many companies has come into the market, and we can say that the Nokia is thrown out completely. It is kicked out. Okay. So why? Because they didn't understand or they didn't work on what is consumer complaints. What are their expectation in future? Okay, so we need to decide that one. We need to do what computers are doing the success for their firms. Just a minute. Okay, sorry for the disturbance. So where we was? So we were discussing about the firms and competitors. So you need to measure or point out the clear-cut direction in the future where you are going to be. Okay, what changes will be there in future after 10 years, after 20 years. According to that, you need to set the goals. Okay, so relevant reading, published materials, the trends and population you need to consider while deciding the research problem are the company records and reports. Okay, so whenever you are trying to decide the problem, so this point should be considered. Okay, so before defining your research problem, research domain, so it maybe comes under any one of these two categories. First one is the identification, selection of your problem, and another one is formulation of your problem. Okay. So already we have discussed how to select your problem. First, you need to make the major category. Okay, so that is broad area. Then go to the sub area, then sub area to sub area, then narrow it, make it a simple one, make the specific topic. Okay, so on the basis of that, you need to select or identify your research domain. Okay, so these steps involve the identification of few problems and selection of one of the upcoming emerging trends in your research work. Okay, so we need to select that particular research domain uh, which will be try to fill up the gap between your knowledge. Okay, so what are the sources of problem? Where you are going to find out the sources of your problem? Okay, so you need to read. Okay, so reading is the one of the major component. So you need to read the research article, you need to read the newspaper, you need to read the journals, books, blogs, so many things. Okay. So when you are reading so many things, then and then you are able to find out the new upcoming research problem in your domain. Okay. So whatever the things which are comes under your research domain, you should be reading. Okay. So you need to gain the or acquire the knowledge, so many knowledge, okay, related to your field, related to your specific domain. Try to read so many things, try to understand the real life challenges, real life problem. So that problem will be going to overcome in future by the upcoming research work. Okay. So reading is very important one. Academic experience. So you have the certain academic experience, so you are capable enough to decide your research problem. Sometimes most of the workers or some daily can say the person doing the research work in the specific domain, so they know that how to what are the problems they are facing. Okay, so the daily experience is required to find out the specific problem. Then exposure to field situation. Sometimes it may happen that the certain situation will be a different one, and immediately you need to find out the solution for that particular situation. Okay, so the field of situation is also important one. Consultation. So whenever you are trying to consult with your client at the time, so the client maybe give the certain inputs to you, and on the basis of that you get the new idea and you will try to decide the research problem. Okay, brainstorming. Brainstorming means you need to decide the first problem and go to the in detail to the till the end of that problem. Okay, so then and then you are able to find out the what are the problems. Okay, so you need to create the specific brain map. Okay, on the basis of that you will be going to find out the problem. Okay, then research is almost it is an important one, and intuition. So if you have the adequate knowledge, so automatically you are going to understand, yes, this is the problem, and this problem can be solved in this manner. Okay, so that kind of research problem you will be going to do in your or you will be going to set for your research. So there are certain criteria whenever you are trying to select this research work. So first one is internal and another one is external. So it's depend upon the what kind of research work you are going on, and whenever you are doing the or selecting the research work, research domain, or you can say the research problem, at the time it should be your interest. If the research problem is not of your interest, then it is very difficult to do or to complete your research work. Okay, so the competencies are required. Your own resources will require means you require certain facts and figures in your hand. So on the basis of that, you can select the appropriate problem. And already we have discussed about finance and time. Okay, so the time barrier and funding is required to complete your research work. So on the basis of that, you need to select the appropriate research problem. Okay, external criteria or the factors. So whenever you are trying to decide your research problem, so you are always depend on the external factors, okay, on the external agencies. So at the time before starting your research work, you need to communicate with that particular agency to provide their primary or secondary data for your research work. Okay, so it is a very important one. So the novelty of your problem should be there, visibility, facility, usefulness, and social relevance. So research may be in one person. Okay, so whenever you are trying to or going to select your appropriate research work, it may be falls under these two categories in terms of the factors you need to decide. Okay, so when you are trying to formulate your research work, so you need to decide your objective. Okay, so that objective should be try to give the answers of your question. What is your research question? On the basis of that, what idea you are going to elaborate. Okay, so on the basis of that, once your research work has been completed, so that kind of objective will be achieved. Okay, so that is the framing of your objective is also very important one. Once you have selected your research domain. Okay, so formulation means translating and transforming the selected research problem topic idea into the significantly researchable questions. So there are two ways to select the questions, the posting questions and making the declarative statements. Okay, so while deciding your or formulation of your research problem, so at the time you should be clear statement, make the clear statement, don't make the vague statement. Okay, and what are the issues you are going to investigate. So at that time, make the proper questions, make the proper declarative statements so that it can be give the answers to your questions. Okay, the another thing is that the process involved in defining the problem. Okay, so what are the process? First thing is that you need to make the very appropriate or systematic manner when you are going to make the research process. Okay, so before going to create the complete research process or draw the or design your research process, you need to understand what is the nature of your problem, what are the availability, what are the literatures are already reported in the earlier research work in your domain. So you need to observe, you need to study very carefully, and once you have get the certain adequate knowledge related to your field, so try to discuss with your supervisor, with your colleague, and try to develop the new idea on the basis of existing problem. Okay, so once you have got this idea, you need to convert this idea into the research problem and make the present. So whenever you are trying to decide your research problem, so these are the criteria should be followed. Okay, so the criteria to make the good research problem, first one is clear and unambiguous. Okay, so your research idea or your research problem or your research domain should be clear. It is not unambiguous. Okay, empirical. So it should be based on facts and figures. It should be a certain base. So whenever you are trying to prove certain things, so at the time it required the certain validation. Okay, so that should be an empirical one, verifiable. So I have done the research work, and same research work has been done by some another researcher. So at the time it should be verified. Okay, so it is verifiable. Then interesting. So if you are interested in that particular domain, so it is very interesting to you also, and you will be do a fantastic job in your research domain. Okay, so novel and original one, availability of your guidance. So you want to do the research work, but the particular research domain supervisor is not available. At that time, it is very difficult to perform your research work. Okay, so we need to check whether the availability of the guidance or not. So these are the certain steps we need to follow while setting your objectives of your research domain or defining your research problem. So first, we need to symptom detection. Okay, so you know that if we take the example of the doctor, so any patient has arrived at the doctor. So doctor first try to understand what are the symptoms. Okay, so they will ask some questions to the patient. What is going on? Like, is it this? Is it this? Areas are there? What kind of problem you are facing? Okay, so on the basis of that, they are trying to diagnose the problem. Okay, so you need to understand what are the symptoms are there. So symptom detection is one of the major problem or one of the major challenging tasks while deciding or defining your research. Okay, once you have detected the symptoms, then you go for the analysis the situation. Okay, so the doctor will be going to analyze what will be the disease. Okay, so if you are coughing, so at the if you have the fever, so if you have the joint on your pain or pain in your joints, so at the time, what kind of disease is there? Okay, whether it is dengue or some another one. So if you have very high temperature, you are vomiting one, there is a seizing. So at that time, what kind of disease is there? Okay, so on the basis of that, you need to select or you need to analyze the proper situation, then decide the problem. Okay, so doctor will diagnose it and try to do the solution to the given problem. Okay, similar manner, you need to define the problem and try to give the solution in the form of your objective and try to complete your objective throughout your research work. So that is the clear-cut the definition of your research. Okay, so first you need to detect the problem, analyze that problem, set the problem, and try to set your objective. And throughout your research work, try to solve your or fulfill your objective. So that is not nothing but your research, right? So once you have established the objective or you have set the objective, so one of the very famous definition as given by the Churchill in 2001. So research objective are the specific components of the research problem that you will be working to answer complete in order to answer the overall research problem. Okay, so you need to give the answers to the overall research problem. The another one is the objective refers to the questions to be answered through the study. So it will try to indicate what trying to get from your study. Okay, so what are the expected output once your study has been completed. Okay, so you need to set the objective in such a way that after the successful completion of your research work, so that going to be happen. Okay, so that kind of objective you need to set. Okay, so you need to set the expected result and expected outcome of your research work. Okay, so while creating the objective, so you need to be specific while writing your statement. Okay, so I will show you some examples how to write the statements while deciding the objectives. So the objective should be like this: to discover, to determine, to establish. So I will just open this PDF is visible to you.
Yes, sir.
Is it?
Yes, sir.
So I will just wanna take the one case study later on. Yes. Okay, so how to write the problems? Okay, of the objective. Okay, so in this manner, you need to write your research objective or your questions. The currently study investigate the relation between. So you need to find out the relationship between the two variables, two object, two systems. So anything. Okay, so you need to start your writing the objective in this manner. Okay. So second one is the focus of this study will be on. Okay, so This is just example. I will just read out it so you will be easily understand. The main purpose of this study is, the objective of this research is to determine, the present study is designed to examine, the primary goal of this study is, the primary concern of this research is, the principal objective of this study is. Okay, so many things, so many different ways to you can write the research problem, or you can say the specific objective of your research work. Okay, so the principal objective of this study is this. The purpose of this study is to address the problem of, the purpose of this study is to develop the conceptual model. Okay, the purpose of the study is to examine the better understand the effects. Okay, so in this manner you can write in so many ways to different type of or set your objective, set your goals. The specific objective of the present study are, my thesis is, the thesis will deal with, the thesis explore the idea. There are several reasons for inquiring into. This study examine. This research represents an attempt to test the effectiveness of. Like this, you need to set the objectives, right? And this is the brain map. So you can identify your research topic or your research problem in this manner. Okay, so identification of your research work or your interest. First, you need to understand what is your interest. So on the basis of, you need to go to the encyclopedia, right? Then try to discuss with your colleague, make the questionnaires, make this, discuss with the reading researchers. If it is a discipline specific, so you go to the specific searching. So you need to use the different type of search engine like Google or some another engines. You need to go to bibliographies. You need to go to the refer the journals. You need to refer the databases. Then once you have reached out to that specific problem, then make the research plan, make the research problem, search out the specific research journal related to your research work. Same thing will happen. Once your research proposal is ready, make the research plan and make the time frame. Okay, so research timeline should be followed. Okay, so once your research plan is going to be complete, so at that time you should be analyze it. What is your facts? Okay, so what knowledge you have discovered? Okay, so knowledge inventory is there. Self-assess what study already believe about the topic and why you believe it. Okay, so what facts you have find it. So you need to report it in the form of reports. Certain report writing should be there. Okay. So while deciding your question work, you need to make the narrow one, the specific topic or specific questions. You need to select one. Okay. So free writing and looping, ask a journalist question like the journalist. Cluster mind mapping, add the adjective qualifiers to the topic for the specific questions. Then term bank, so try to use the different type of keywords, and on the basis of that keyword, you need to elaborate them. Okay. So I will make these certain case study. So these are the sample research problems identified the industry organization. So they are going to discuss their research problem in this manner. Okay, so if we categorize it in different manner, for example, project process and practices, emerging and future industry issues, people issues, breakthrough. Okay, so if we take the first project process and practices, so first point is performance metrics and benchmarking to support modularization business case analysis, controlling scaffolding cost. Like this, so many things are there. So they will going to tackle this problem in this manner. So first is essential question. Okay, what is this problem? Okay, and why you have chosen such kind of problem there. Okay, what we are going to be analyzed in future. Okay, so these are the essential questions you need to analyze here. Then what are the required background to solve this your research work, research problem of your research domain. So the essential questions is required, then with the certain backgrounds. And what are the new terms you are going to note it. Okay, so these are the some important points you will be going to do in future. Okay, so in this manner you need to write. Okay, same things with references. Essential questions, background, the note to T. Okay, I want to show you another thing. So this is copied from the this website. Okay, so what are the problems faced by the researchers? So already I have reported you the problems faced by the researcher in India according to the Kothari's book. But some of the problems also facing by the researcher like the too much stress, too little time, finding research grants and fundings, demonstrating impact, showing your work, the data, showing your work with your research profiles, promoting the research culture. Okay, so these are the new challenging problems which are facing by the academicians and even the researchers. Okay, so what are the difficulties while doing your research? The study explored the various common challenges, difficulties during the writing the research proposal and projects, such as difficulty to deciding the topic for research, lack of good knowledge of that particular methodology, inability to finding the modern specialized related references, lack of the interest in your research work, and lack of the so many things. Okay, so we don't want to discuss a lot related to this point. Okay, so this is the important point. What are the challenges faced during the data collection? So if you don't have the data, and you need to collect the data from the different resources or different agencies. So at the time, so many challenges or so many problems uh, are faced by the researchers. So like this inconsistent data collection standard, context of data collection. Data collection is not core to business function. Complexity, lack of training in data collection, lack of quality assurance process, changes to define policies and maintaining data. Okay, so many things are there, and we need to overcome these upcoming challenges in your research. Okay, this one is mine. Okay, so this is the case study. So if you want to do the research work in computer science, so at that time you are the student of basic and applied research work. Okay, so basic and applied research work is very complicated. It requires very hardcore dedication to do the research work. Okay, so whenever we are trying to decide your research work, you need to ask the question. Okay, so according to the SPOT admins, so if there are no stupid questions, then what kind of questions do stupid people ask? Do they get the smart just in the time of ask the question? Okay, so you know the very famous theory tale related to the Einstein, Albert Einstein. So he has asked one question, and on the basis of that question, he has deliberated or elaborated so many theories, right? And nowadays we are following their rules in the physics. Okay, so whenever you are trying to select the appropriate research problem, so you need to first ask the question why. Okay, so WH question should be there. So unsuitable problems. So at the most basic level, the gist of your research, the consist of collection of your data and its interpretation. Okay, so if you are not able to get the proper data in a proper manner, so then that at the time we can say it is unsuitable. It is not able to solve your problem. Okay, so we can say it is unsuitable. So research is not a simply learning about something. Okay, so you need to do the solution to the existing problem. Research is not the simple comparison of your data set. Okay, so most of the case, the student, academician, what they can do, they just collect the data and try to plot the graph on that data in the form of bar or analysis, and they can say, yes, this is the research work. It is not a proper or quality research work. So you need to give the appropriate prediction or the judgment. What are the reasons behind that one? Okay, so if you get the accuracy or less or high as compared to the existing researcher reported work, so at that time you need to give the proper justification. What are the reasons behind it? Okay, what is your interpretation and what are the significance behind it? So, so it is not just a comparison of your data sets. So you just take the data set, plot the graph, and that's it. It is not just a research. Okay, so you need to do the proper justification for the, you can say, of your outcome. Okay, what are your outcomes are there on the basis of what are the factors are influencing to come out this answer. Okay, so this outcome has been come on the basis of this factor. Okay, so that is interpretation is very more important instead of just a comparison or make the comparison between table to table or graph to graph or bar to bar. Okay, so we need to make the correlation between your research work, right, your data sets. So only the downloading the data set or collecting the data set, it is not just a research. So most of the researchers just say that we have collected this data set in our research work. So only collecting the data set is not the research. Okay, so once you have collected the data set, after collecting your data set, what are the methods you are going to use and what are the outcomes? That is important. Okay, and why you have chosen the this particular database? What are the standardizations are there? How this your database is well or very good as compared to the existing database? That justification or that interpretation you need to convey to the others. Okay, so that is very important. So it is not just a correlating your data sets. It is not a just a research. Okay. So the whenever you are deciding your research problem, it is do not simply result yes or no. Okay, it is not a yes or no. It is not just the speaking yes or no. So we need to give the proper, the appropriate steps how your research problem will be solved. What are the specific method? Okay, and what are the complete methodology will be going to solve the complete problem. Okay, so you need to decide the good problem for your research work. Okay, so for that you need to find out the interesting problem in which you are interested. You feel the problem is something you can tackle in reasonable amount of time. You care about your problem enough to expend resources on in terms of time, effort, money, etc. You think you might be able to make the contribution to solving the problem or part of it. Okay, so many things are there we need to discuss, but I think I'm going too much, taking too much time. So we will just stop here. So if you have any questions, problems, please ask. Yes, I just wait. I will just tell you this story. So this is a very famous story. Okay, so it is called as private section. Okay, so I will just read out the story. So several years ago, I attended a student conference involving many engineering graduate students. One of these presentations I listened was made by the former engineering master students who had recently graduated. The talk was titled something like the Fourier methods for resolving antenna noise. So over the next 45 minutes, he showed many slides indicating the different Fourier methods he had used to attempt to reduce the amount of intermittent noise that had been experienced in the signal of an antenna mounted on the CN top. Okay. So clearly the student had done quite a bit research and wanted to share it. Okay, so one of these, this is the story written by this author, whose PDF I am going to share you. Okay, so I think it is Alexander, right? So it is Alexander. So not knowing much about the Fourier methods, I started asking questions about the problem he was trying to solve. Eventually, I asked which Fourier method yielded the best results. Okay, so he seems quite surprised at this question and responded with why none of them. So I think he has given the answer, none of them. So the supervisor or the examiner has asked the question, why none of them? So it turns out the noise was being caused by the defective coax cable. So once that was replaced, the noise is taken out. Okay, so are you able to understand what was there? What was the problem? The problem was only in the coaxial cable, but the researcher has tried to solve that problem with the help of so many Fourier methods. Okay, and he is not able to solve that problem at all. Once he have replaced that coaxial cable, then that problem gets solved. Okay, so before trying to set your research domain problem, you need to check what are the availabilities, what are the problems, whether is there any influencing factors are there. So if any influencing factors are there, you need to tackle that one and try to resolve it first, then try to implement your method. Okay, that is a very important one, and this is assignment for you. So read the paper available on the website. So grand challenge or computing research. You just take out the snapshot. Okay, I will just take and paste it into your team. Okay, so is there any questions? Any doubt?
Sir, keep this 4 PDF with your presentation in Teams.
Yes, no issue.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay. So just open. So I have already uploaded the books related to the research methodology. You can refer it from this side. And, upload the folder. Research problem. Okay, so you will get this 4 PDF. All these PDF files also uploaded there. Okay. So you can download it, open it. So thank you very much. Is there a
Thank you.
professor is present? Okay, so thank you very much for your patience listening. Have a nice day and take care.
Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for